Okay, so nice to be back. Nice to see you. So we're hopefully infused with the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Lag Bomer, which is a big thing, as you know. How it's connected to these concepts, I don't know yet, but hopefully eventually we'll find a connection. Bezrat Hashem. So before we continue where we left off, just some pointers to remember to what we're getting into here. Rav Noson's goal, the primary, straightforward goal, is he wants to explain the concept of Shekalim, the mitzvah of Shekalim, which back then was used also as the census to count the Jews. They would count them using the half shekel coins, the machatzita shekel coins. So he wants to go into the idea of counting and how to count the Jews. It's used as a counteract to count the actual coins. Rav Nosson already went into this a little bit in paragraph number 9 earlier in this discourse. He's going to add here more details in this paragraph 16, 17, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay? He's going to go more into that hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem. That's the primary idea. And also he's going to explain why specifically did the money of the Shekalim coins go to the Korbanot and to the Ketoret. He's going to explain how that fits in to the whole idea here. On a deeper level, on a more personal level, all this is to get to a real fundamental point, is that Hashem wants to enable a connectivity and a connection for anyone in this world to the highest levels possible. On one hand, this is so powerful, a piece of encouragement, that no matter where Jew has fallen, no matter where he's gone to, the fact that Hashem enables connection of the infinite light, which is like the source for everything, for life, for happiness, for healing, everything you need in life is rooted in the infinite light. So on one hand, right, it can be it's available, it's there for every Jew, every person to connect to when needed. And he shouldn't feel that this world is detached from Hashem. What I'm going through is detached. No, that in every second there's a possibility that you can reconnect. The fact is that the world is only sustained by this connection. But the point is, if you want to now remove the concealments and to strengthen that connection, you can, B'ezrat Hashem. There's a way to do that. There's a way that the infinite light is connected to this world. And if you get that connection, so again, not in a fixed way, because the world will disappear, the person will disappear if someone finite becomes merged in the infinite. So it can't work out. It can't work out on a permanent basis. It has to be in and out. But when a person is in and out, he brings back with him the shefa, the bounty, whatever is needed. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay? So the second thing is, you got to work for this, because the way it works is a person has a lot of setbacks, and he has to be strong to decipher and to perceive, to view the setbacks as only a key to come closer to Hashem, B'ezrat Hashem. It's not that, I'm not worthy, I'm never going to make it, it's just finished. It's just opposite. These things are going to build vessels for you to perceive the infinite light. So this is what Rav Nosson is really getting to. This is what Rebbe Nachman in the lesson, and Rav Nosson, by developing these ideas, he's making insights on the concept of the Shekalim and everything, but it's to get to this point, because now this paragraph 16, if you notice, it's very subtle, very delicate. It's one of the most subtle, most delicate places in the Likutey Halakhot, where he goes very, very deep in the makeup of the creation. There's a few places Rav Nosson does this. This is one of them, where he really goes into this idea, B'ezrat Hashem. But the point is, again, that there's always a hope to get into this. So now, with all that said, Rav Nosson wants to show how even scientifically, mathematically, it's clear that the role of the infinite light, is part of the makeup of mathematics, of science. It's there. It's there. You want to see how Hashem is found in the makeup of the laws of science and mathematics? He's going to show that. Just before that point, in the last paragraph, I feel there were things that I didn't clarify when I gave the class on the previous section. Rav Nosson pointed out that the sfirot, the word for sfirot, we can't translate them. We call them, even in English, We call them sphirot. Some funny translations, they want to translate it as a sphere, S-P-H-E-R-E. That's wrong. There's no English translation of sphere. We call them sphirot, levels of energy. But Rav Nosson pointed out, unbelievable. What's the root word of a sphira? Mispar, numbers. And he said clearly that the root of all numbering in this world is from the sphirot. That's why there's 10 sphirot, 9 plus 1 really. The sphirot are the makeup of all the numbering. He's going to go into this now also in this paragraph. That all the numbering is up to the number 9 and then 10, which 10 is like going back to 0. It's 0 with a 1 in front of it to show that it's unified. Rav Nosson's going to this point right now. We're going to go into it. But all the numbering parallels the sphirot. And the sphirot are rooted in what's called the Orot HaTzachtzachot. Orot HaTzachtzachot is a very deep, long, powerful concept. I did go into this in classes on Likutey Moharan, where Rebbe Nachman begins to go into the concept of the Tzachtzachot. To go into everything is just too much right now for the scope of what we want to do. But you can see in Inner Space, the book of Ari Kaplan, in Inner Space, page 111, he goes into a little bit of the Tzachtzachot. Basically, Tzachtzachot is the part of the keter that accesses for the person the infinite light. Because the person doesn't have direct access to the infinite light. Everything is through the keter. The keter is like a wall, a filter, a window. It's everything in between. It has different levels, the keter. Just like on a physical crown, you put on the head of the king. You have the bottom rim of the crown, which sits on the actual head of the forehead and the skull. Then you have the middle part of the crown where all the jewels and decorations are. And then you have the spitzes, the points on the top of the crown. If you ever notice, they're pointing up to Hashem. A crown with all its decorations on the top are like spitzes. It's not like it's just a flat. You don't put like a round ring over the head of the king. You make it noticeable with spitzes, with the kotzim, the pointers going on the top. Okay, so too, the Kabbalah explains that the keter has 3 sections. You have the lower one, I think it's called atik. The middle arich anpin, or it's reversed. Arich anpin is the bottom. The middle part is called atik, and the top is called Adam Kadmon or Orot HaTzachtzachot. Orot HaTzachtzachot is another usage of accessing the infinite light. Orot, light, Tzachtzachot. Tzachtzachot, in English it's translated as splendors, but it's Tzachot, because it's the person, it's 3, the Arizal goes very much into this. It's so deep, I can't even figure it out that much. But you have Tzach, which is 1, and you have Tzachot, 2 more, plural. So he says it's called Tzachtzachot because it's like a doubt. We don't know. Is it Tzach? Is it Tzachot? So they joined a funny word, Tzachtzachot. Because you could just say, or Tzach, a clear, clean light. No. They use the wording Tzach, Tzachot, which is a funny combination of 2 words. Tzach, which is singular, and then Tzachot, plural. And it's corresponding to the Chokhmah Bina Dat, the 3 parts of the mind that try to perceive the infinite light. That's why it's 1, 2, 3. Tzach, Tzachot. That's one explanation. But like I said, also the result says it's a doubt. When the Navi, because the verse, the origin of the term Tzach Tzachot is a verse from Isaiah. V'isbia b'tzach tzachot nafshecha. And Hashem will satiate with the Tzach Tzachot, with this splendor, your soul. You have satiation with Tzach Tzachot. It's pretty deep, okay? But what Rav Nosson's point is saying that the root of the 10 of the Sfirot, what's above the Sfirot in the Kabbalah? What's above like the level of the keter? The Orot HaTzachtzachot. And Rav Nosson said something unbelievable. He said the 9 chambers are synonymous with the light of the Tzachtzachot. It's the exact same thing, which is crazy. Because you say number 9, by saying a number, it's already showing a limitation of something concrete, something in the world. Okay? And yet he's saying it is the Tzachtzachot. So this is the paradox that we can't figure out. And the Tzadikim who reach such a high level, they master this contradiction. It's idea of on one hand being accessible, accessing the infinite light, and yet at the same time, it's already becoming in a concrete constricted form. That's why it's a number 9. They're called 9 chambers to contain within them the infinite light. And he says, Rebbe Nachman says himself in the lesson, And Rav Nosson is saying here also, the chambers themselves are part of the infinite light. Because the Zohar says, he quotes the Zohar many times, that these 9 chambers cannot be grasped. So if they cannot be grasped, so how they're a chamber? So it shows you it's something above the grasp, and yet it's a chamber for something which you can't grasp. So what are you talking about here? That's the idea, that it's ungraspable, but only the tzaddikim who reach such a high level of serving Hashem with Simcha, and then reach such a high level of Emuna, they're able, B'ezrat Hashem, afterwards, to create vessels that contain this light and access it, but in the form of in and out. Okay? This was mentioned in the previous paragraph. This is amazing how he says that the sfirot are called sfirot because they're the beginning point of numbering. The reason why numbers end at 10, like you would think, the people who started mathematics, how come they don't stop at 15, and then at 15 then start again at 0, 1, or at 20, 25, who picked 10? It's amazing, and yet that's part of basic mathematics, that at number 10, it stops and goes back to 0. We're at 9 really. 10 is a repetition of 0, and then 11 is 1, a repetition of 1, 12 is a repetition of 2. Okay, the same thing with 20. 20 is a repetition of the 0, 21, 11. Okay, it's always going up to 9, and then once it reaches 10, it goes back to the 0. That's how it's 10 really. It's 9, which is really 10, but it's really 9, because the 10 is unified in the 0 beginning the 1. Okay, this is a bit tricky to understand. We'll try to figure this out, B'ezrat Hashem, as we follow Rav Nosson, word by word, carefully, B'ezrat Hashem. But Rav Nosson is going to show us that the way mathematics is designed, in it you have the hinted to and expressed the unity of Hashem, which is why we go back to 0 again. So look what he says. Again, this is very, very subtle, very deep, but the point Rav Nosson is going to make is to show that in the makeup of numbers, and what's so important about numbers, because everything in the world is based on numbers. A human being, he has all types of cells and atoms, okay? So the makeup of the cells and atoms is already numbers. There's one atom, one molecule, another one. So already, when you break down all existence, all creation, it's going down to the makeup, you break it down to the most basic element of whatever, of cells, of molecules, of atoms, but there's many of them. There's not just one atom. There's many. It starts with one atom, but a human being has many. All creation is made up of atoms, plural, molecules, plural, cells, plural. It starts off with, it's all in numbering. There's like many of them. So that means all of creation is based on the idea of numbers. Okay? That's why it's so important. The idea of numbering is the basics of everything, not just of money, dollars, how much money I have, but everything in the world, the basic breakup of all creation, of all matter, is numbers. And Amos is going to show, and in the numbers, you find Hashem's unity hinted to in how the numbering system works. We count tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000, 100,000, millions. Everything goes, again, repetition. You added a stage, but it's repetition. It's always repeating itself in the basis. Okay? So he says like this. V'alken hem b'mispar tish'a hechalim. He's going to explain why 10 sfirot we don't have to go into, because they're rooted in 9 chambers. That's what he said. So that's the case. He's gonna focus now on the number 9 of the 9 chambers. Just to back up a little, in the lesson itself, Likutey Moharan lesson 24, Rebbe Nachman already explained how you get the number 9. He says the number 9 is created because when the person's mind is activated through serving Hashem with joy, and the mind is running to go forward in life to pursue more godliness, and then the keter, to prevent the person from becoming unified with the infinite light and disappearing, melting, the keter is like a wall pushing back the person's chokhmah bina da'at. So he says in the lesson clearly, Rebbe Nachman, that by the mind being hit, so the chokhmah bina da'at, they're like a team, they're a unit working together. So because they work together, they become mumbled, mixed up, mingled, intermingled, mumbled, whatever you want to call it in English, and the mixing up, the shaking, causes them to become intermixed on a more deeper level. Originally, there were Chokhmah, Bina, Dad, three separate units working together. But because of the bounce, they become so shaken up, and they're working as a team. So each part becomes unified with a different part of the other one. So, for example, there's Chokhmah of Chokhmah, Chokhmah of Bina, Chokhmah of Dat. There's Bina of Bina, Bina of Chokhmah, Bina of Dat, Dat of Dat, Dat of Chokhmah, Dat of Bina. So that's 3 times 3 multiplied, because that's how the mingling causes that. So it becomes the number 9. 3, 3, 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Rav Nosson, it seems, I'm not going to say he's not satisfied with Rebbe Nachman's interpretation, but he's adding a new dimension to the number 9. We're going to use the basis of Chokhmah Bina Dat being intertwined, because if you think about it, how the Kabbalah explains the formation of the levels of the Sfirot, everything starts in Chokhmah Bina Dat. Even Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, even Netzach, Hod, Yesod, they're all initially they're rooted in Chokhmah Bina Dat. So you have Chokhmah Bina Dat in all the 9 levels. So 2 numbers, okay? The number 9 has in it also 1, also 2, also 3. So if Nosson is looking from that perspective, that in the big number, you have the other mini numbers included. So also in the Chokhmah Bina Dat, the lower triads of Sfirot are also in there, okay? So with that in mind, Rav Nosson is going a step forward. V'alken hem b'mispar tish'a hechalim. This is why the number of the chambers are specifically 9. 9 chambers. Tish'a daika. Specifically 9 chambers. 9. Why the number 9? So he's like, Rav Nosson is going to show this mathematically. Ki mispar tish'a hu shoresh kol ha-misparim sheba'olam. Because the number 9 is the root of all the numbers, the numbering systems in the world. Because they end up with 9, the culmination is 9, and it stops there. When you go to 10, it's like a repetition of 0. 11, like we said, 11 is 1, 12 is 2, okay? It goes up to 9, it doesn't pass. We have no numbering system that like says it stops at 11, 12, 13, and then we start again at 0. It doesn't work like that. There's like 13, it's we can't figure it out. There's no 13, and then, okay, so what's after 13 to go back to 0? It can't fit in. It has to be 9, and then that's it. The 0, which is 10, is back to 0. That makes sense. I can't figure out any other mathematical way that they would create a system where it goes up to 32, 36, 47, 17, 18. It stops at 10, meaning 9 is already the maximum. 10 is already going back to 0. Okay? Kimispar tisha shoresh. So that's what he said. It's the root. It doesn't say number 1 is the root. He's going to say the culmination of numbering systems, misparim, in the world is all based on 9, up to 9. Kayadua b'chush, as is known with the chush. In other words, we can figure this out with our instinct. That's how it works. Sham mispar kale etzel tisha, that the numbering stops at 9. 9 is the maximum. Ki achar tisha chozer hamispar limkor ha'achdut shehu 10. Because after 9, the number goes back to its it goes back to be to the source of unification, which is 10. Because 10 again is a repetition of 0, and 0 is considered before numbers. Like we said, you remember that point? That 1 is real. On one hand, it's the beginning point, but it's the keter. Before 1 is Hashem. Okay, we say Hashem is a unity. He's the unification. He's the achdut, but it's really 0. It's before numbers. It's funny. It's tricky. We call it achdut, which means echad, a unity, but really it's before that. It's a 0. It's before anything, but contains in it everything. Okay, that's already in itself hard to understand that. But that's what Nosson is saying, that this 10 is like going back to 0 and starting again. 10, 20, 30, everything that has a 0 is going back to the unity. Again, Ki achar tisha chozer hamispar, because after 9, the number goes back to its root of its unity, which is 10. Shehi bechinat echad, which is the idea of number 1. Bechinat echad. Sorry, this is tricky. This is so tricky because 1 is really after 0. Shei bechinat echad. The zero is really the root of the unity. Ki asara hu asirit echad. What is 10? It's a tenth of 1. Asirit echad. It's a tenth multiplied of 1. 1 times 10 is 10. Tricky, huh? וכן הולך המספר עד 9 עשיריות. And that's how it works 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. וכן הולך המספר עד 9 עשיריות, 9 tens, which is 90. ואחר כך 100 חוזר ונכלל באחד שהוא 101, which is 101. You see, he went back to 101. The 0 is the beginning point, which is like the keter. It's hard to say that, isn't it? The 9, again, 1, 2, 3. We have 9 sfirot without the keter. If we include Chochmah Bin Hadat, Chesed Gvura Tiferet, Netzach Hod Yesod Malchut, we have there 9. Okay? Keter, which is unified with the unity of Hashem, it's above the sfirot. It's above the sfirot. It's the 0 that becomes 10, becomes 20. Okay? We got the point though. It's tricky to figure this out because 1 is really the beginning point. 1 of the 9, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. But the 10 is 0 going back to the echad, which means I'm going back to begin to count echad. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining it as clear as it could be, but I think we got the point what he's trying to say. Okay? וכן הולך המספר עד 9 עשיריות, okay, like we said, אחר כך חוזר ונכלל באחד שהוא 101. 100 of 1. Because it's always going back to 0 and then starting again. וכן לעולם כידוע, and that's how it is forever, ad infinitum, as is known. נמצא שעיקר שורש המספר הוא 9. So therefore, we see that the root of the numbers is 9, because you stop at 9, then you go back to start again. 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 is not a number, it's a beginning point. It's a beginning point, and that said it's echad, but it's not 1 of the 9. 1 of the 9 begin after the beginning point of 0. ואחר כך חוזר הכל ונכלל באחדות. So afterwards, everything goes back to going back to 0 and becomes unified with the unity of Hashem. What Rav Nosson has shown to us is in the mathematics of how numbers work, you see that it goes back to 0, goes back to nothingness and starts again at another level, but it has to go back to 0 first in order to start again. So in this, Rav Nosson is showing that in the makeup of the mathematics of the creation of the universe of matter, Hashem's unity is there. That's the idea of going back. Because if that's the case, there should be no 10. It should be straight after 9, then go to 11, 12, and then from 19, 21. What's the idea of always going back to 0? 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, billion, trillion. Why the idea of going back always to 0 to start again? In other words, he's showing that in the makeup of the mathematics, the idea of going back to 0 is the idea of Hashem's unity. That we take the numbers and we reunify them. So in this sense, he's showing us already that when we're saying 9 chambers, yes, it's true, it's a number 9, but because it's the root of all the numbers and it's up to 9, it's the beginning point of showing that the numbers are rooted in Hashem's existence, Hashem's infinite light. Okay? That's why 9, and that's it. And now the 9 chambers, which is now the beginning of the code for creation to become numbers, the 10 sphere, which is 9, plus the 10, which is really 0 again, okay? And then the mathematics, all this is hinted to in the 9 chambers to show us that Hashem is to be found even in the creation. Because if that's not the case, why go back to 0? Skip 0, skip 10, like we said, go to 11, 19, go to 21. Why this idea of the 0 going back to Ephes, which is the unity of Hashem? When he said Echad in the paragraph was tricky. He's referring to the Echad, the unity of God, that's going back to 0 and then forcing you to start again at 1, 21, 31, 41, 101, 1001, etc., right? But in essence, he's saying that the 0 is the unity here. This is very deep stuff, but this is the point. Rav Nosson is showing mathematically proven that God exists. That's the idea of the 0. Because if you're such a mathematician, why go back to 0? Why start again? Who told you to start again? Jump. Like we said, 19, 21, 29, 31. Why the zeros again? Why? The question is, I made a mistake here. There should be no 21. It should be some funny number then. After 9, after 19, after 29. What's the idea of again a 0 and a 1 and a 2? That itself is a problematic. Create new numbers. We can't. That's how mathematics work. That it's up to 9 and then we start again. So in this, Rav Nosson says, the starting again itself shows you that it's dependent on a force which is beyond and before numbers. 0. What's 0? It's an existence. It's Hashem. It's a non-existence existence. We can't portray. We have to give a number to it. So we call it 0. But it's really Hashem's essence in the mathematics of the creation. Absolutely crazy. Rav Nosson is showing us. So in this, he's showing that the number 9 of the Shekalim is specific. It's not just Chokhmah bin Adat and then multiplied to make it number 9, but it's the whole mathematics of creation. And because of that, numbering is important in Judaism. That's the idea Rav Nosson is going to explain soon of the census. Why was needed to count the Jews? Why do you have to count the Jews? Why does the Torah also give a census? Coming up in Parashat Bamidbar, there's the big census that we have coming up. Also the number of the Jews that came to Egypt. Why is it so important to count? It's not just, okay, I'm counting people, to be impressed. Wow, look how many. That's a superficial pshat level. Why does Hashem require to count the Jewish people? If there's a rule that bracha is only with what's concealed, so don't count. What are you counting? So he's saying the counting, we're going to go into this idea, the counting of the Jewish people is now to connect all the mathematics of the entire creation back to the Jewish people, and them being the conduit to connect everything to Hashem. You can't say, okay, I have 5,000 yen currency, so it's connected to Hashem. No. We need some representation in this world who will be an elite number, a master of the numbers, who are going to connect all the numbers of the entire universe back to the 9 chambers. And that's the Jewish people, and specifically the Tzadikim, who are the ones who are accessing many times these 9 chambers. Like we said earlier, if you remember 2 classes ago, that the Tzadikim, they know how to do this very well. They know how to handle the in and outs of life and know how to take the bounce back from the keter and create the 9 chambers and then bring infinite light and then share it to the rest of the world. Share with us what they're perceiving. As long as we connect with straightforward, simple, at our own level, at our low level, Emuna and Simcha in what we're doing, so we can access Emuna with the Tzadikim also, not just Emuna and Hashem, but Emuna, because Emuna is divided into 4 sections. 3 sections is Emuna and Hashem, Emuna in the Torah, Emuna in the Tzadikim, and the cup for all this is to believe in yourself, to believe that you have a value, that you have a value in Hashem's eyes. You believe in Hashem, but you believe that Hashem also loves you and He wants your little devotion. Okay? So this cup of Emuna includes Emuna and the Tzadikim. And for us to connect, Rav Nosson said earlier, he's going to say it again and again and again, for us to connect on a strong basis to the 9 chambers, so that no matter what we go through in life, we can always find a way out and find hope and salvation. It's through first stage, have Emuna and the Tzadikim are doing this. Now, who are the Tzadikim are doing this? So there's a famous story, an anecdote told about one of Rav Nosson's disciples. Rav Nosson had a disciple. His name was Rav Moshe Breslover. He took upon the last name Breslover. His real last name was Rav Moshe, I think it was Lubarsky. And he was asked by someone like this. Rebbe Nachman talks about the tzaddik, the tzaddik, the tzaddik, the tzaddik, the true tzaddik, the tzaddik of the generation. Who is he referring to? Who is he referring to? So Moshe Breslover told the person, it seems that Paro was smarter than you. Why was Paro smarter than you? Because if you remember when Pharaoh had the dream of the 7 cows, the 7 lean cows, the 7 fat cows, and how they swallowed up the fat cows and the 7 stalks of grain, and then he tried to find someone to interpret the dream because it bothered him very much. Nobody suited what he was looking for until he was told about Yosef. He said, "Bring Yosef from the prison, from the bore, the pit." And they brought Yosef before the king, and he properly explained the dream of Paro. You should know 7 years of plenty are the 7 fat cows. 7 years of famine are the 7 lean cows. The swallowing up of the fat cows by the lean cows will show that when the years of famine will come, velo noda ki ba'u el kirbena, just like the lean cow swallowed the fat cow, and it was as skinny as it was before it swallowed it up, so too, when the bad years come of famine, people are going to forget the good times. Lo noda, they won't even remember that there were good times. It'll be so bad that the bad days will swallow up the good days that they can't remember that good days. Everything seems like it was always bad. It was always bad, always bad. Like some people talk. Always miserable, always miserable. You never had anything good in life? No, everything was bad. Because they're going through so much difficulties that everything is dark, okay? So Pharaoh said to Yosef and to his scholars and advisors, En chacham v'navon kamocha. Yosef, there's no one smarter as you. And there's no one wise and understanding as you. You know the problem, you gave a good interpretation, because Pharaoh, like Rashi pointed out, Pharaoh understood that this can't be a personal dream. He's a king, so it has to be a national level. So Yosef was the first one to give a plausible, understandable, acceptable explanation that it's on a national level. There's going to be tons of bounty coming in for 7 years, but be smart. So then Pharaoh said, you know the problem, and you know the solution, because Yosef continued after explaining the dream. He says, so you're going to need someone to be in charge, a treasurer, who won't be sidetracked by the bounty that comes in the 7 years. He won't lose perspective of what's going to be. He'll be like a soldier, point blank, to know that now's not a time to just forget about everything and enjoy Club Med and everything. Now's the time to invest for the bad years. We have to store and store and store and not to get sidetracked. So Pharaoh said, you know the problem, you know the solution, you must be that guy. I'm appointing you as the viceroy, and you're the one who's going to now be the one in charge. And that's what Yosef did. There was so much grain, so much bracha in the 7 years that it was enough to sustain everybody for 7 years. Not only Egypt, but all the other countries that had the famine with them, they all started coming to Egypt. That's how much bounty there was. And even the rich people and all the Egyptians who stored personally, and it all went rotten, everything went bad, still what Yosef gathered was enough even to help them out. Everybody, okay? So Moshe Breslov said, if Rebbe Nachman is pointing out what the Tzadikim do, then he must know what it means, what it's all about. If he's explaining you levels out of the Tzadikim do, he can't be down below and saying, oh, the Tzadikim can do this and this and that, but I don't know, I'm not there, I don't know. It doesn't work like that. If he's now explaining by details what's going on, so then he must know what it's all about. So this is an idea of Tzadikim. We have to yearn to find Tzadikim at this caliber who can do this. And if we don't know who they are, so we have no choice but to connect ourselves to Tzadikim in the past, who we know for sure had this level of caliber of strength, and through them to come even today to that. The Gemara says, and the Midrash says, and the Zohar says, that Tzadikim, after their passing, they're greater than their lifetime. It's like, I have to use this analogy, if you remember Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you remember? He told Darth Vader, if you strike me down, I'll become more invincible than you can ever imagine. That's a Jewish idea, that the Tzadikim, Lahavdil, Obi-Wan's not a Tzaddik, but I'm just saying, the Tzadikim, their power after their passing is unlimited. And while they were in the physical body, they had XYZ power. Once they pass on, they have even greater power. That's why it's a big thing to go to graves of Tzadikim. Rav Nosson, it's funny I'm going into this, by extension, Rav Nosson says this is the greatness of Lag BaOmer on Rabbi Shimon's Hilula. Because he said, Tzadikim, especially at the level of Rabbi Shimon, every year on their anniversary that they passed away, they go up endless levels again. It's like endless, but even more endless. It's powerful, unlimited. They tap into higher levels because it's unlimited energy they have access to. And every time they have their Hilula, their yard site, they go up a level. Okay, that's a phenomenal. That's why it's a big thing to go to Tzadikim, big Tzadikim, to go to the best of the best that you know we're at that level. And through them, you too on your little low level can access this. What this means on a practical level, that you, by going to graves of Tzadikim and davening to Hashem to come to these things, you have better chances that when you're being tested in life, being bashed by your personal keter, to take it properly. You may crash, you may fall, you may get upset and curse and this and that, but you'll get back up, B'ezrat Hashem. As opposed to other people who don't have this, they say, Judaism is not for me. Yiddishkeit is not for me. Davening is not for me. Dveikis is not for me. Chassidus is not for me. The person says, it's not for me. I know many people like that. They said, I gave Judaism a try. And now I say it's not for me. So I'm just going to waste my life on the vanities of this world. Idiot. Poor guy. Stupid. But here he's saying, you have a chance. You have a chance. Rav Nosson says that. You have a better chance of getting back up. And number two, drawing Simcha. Simcha is not easy. We know that. We know that very much. That's why a person has to be very accustomed doing things that make him happy, telling jokes, putting on music, finding the good, looking at the good, being positive, okay? And even after all that, when a person's tested, he's smashed down and he's negative, okay? So it shows that even after all my effort and investment in trying to be happy, I still need a help from above. This help comes from the Tzadikim. They have a koach to daven for you, that when you're in such a rut, you do remember about something to be happy about. You do remember to start again. Even if you're feeling bitter and I don't want to talk to anybody, leave me alone, and you're just miserable, and the person goes to smoking, to alcohol chasam, to do even worse things, pagama brit, whatever. But still, the tzaddikim send like a Morse code message to the person as low as he is. Hey, wake up. It's like the subconscious talking, what do you smash so much? You can pass this, you can start again. Don't give up. That's why it's so important to have tzaddikim of this caliber in your life. Because on your own, it's very difficult. Rav Nosson's explaining all these things. He's explaining all the details. But at the end of the day, he's going to say, still with all this, you're going to need help. You need a tzaddik in your life. You need a tzaddik. You can't say, okay, just me, Hashem, and my books, and that's it. You need a tzaddik. Like we said, the Emuna is 3 parts. Emuna on Hashem, Emuna on the Torah, and Emuna on the tzaddikim. You need that. You need that point. Because on your own, you're going to see. You want to try on? Okay, try. Go. Buy all your art school books. You have a big Torah library. You have Hashem. You have your Torah. Try. Go see. Let's see now how you manage on your own. You'll see that it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. You need a tzaddik to come in to shine your life. And if it's not a living tzaddik, because I don't know who to go to, so I go to at least the tzaddikim who I know for sure were tzaddikim, and I learn their books, I learn their teachings that give me inspiration. Proof, they're giving me inspiration. They read a book 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and yet they're talking directly to me. That's unbelievable. It's phenomenal. How can that be? Because the ruach of the tzaddikim who passed on, they can implant it also in their teachings. Oof, okay. I think we'll stop here. We spoke about a lot of stuff. We have to go over these ideas. And again, it was very delicate. Sorry, you have a question?
No, thank you. Very beautiful.
Baruch Hashem. Rav Nosson is always beautiful. You never come empty-handed from Rav Nosson. He is so powerful. He gives us Rebbe Nachman. His name is Natan, Nosson. He gives us the light of Rebbe Nachman. This book is one of the... He said Rav Nosson once about his book, the Shach on the Shulchan Aruch. He said, they say about him, because he passed away young, and it was during the major pogroms of Tach Vetat of Khmelnytsky, so he had very little time to write. And he had many ideas in Halakhot to write, and he had no time to write it. So he had a holy name that he had access to, so he mentioned the holy name, and his quill wrote as fast as he can think. Okay? Now Rav Nosson said about himself, I can write that fast too, but I don't need the holy name to do that. That's one thing Rav Nosson said. Another thing Rav Nosson said is that the Shlah HaKadosh, he writes about his book, the Shlah, Shnei Luchot HaBrit, that his book is the antechamber to Gan Eden, the prosdor to Gan Eden. Rav Nosson said, my Likutey Halakhot is the Gan Eden itself. We have no idea what we're getting into. This stuff is amazing. It's so energetic. It just takes you to a different world. When you learn the Likutey, it takes you to a different world. The main thing is that when we go back to our nitty-gritty life, to at least remember what we learned, to be able to take it to our daily life. That's dependent a lot on how much we daven about these ideas. That's why, again, I stress to consider Rav Nosson's prayer on this lesson, 24, and it's in the 40-day challenge that we put out. And Bezat Hashem, only good things should come out of this for us and Allah Israel. All right, to be continued.
Beautiful. See you next week, Rabbi.
All right. Next week. Yeah. Okay. Go to Shavuot will be a problem. Shavuot is on the Monday. So,
But, correct.
okay. So next we have a class. All right.
That's fine.
Thank you, buddy.
That was it. Bye.